Hi, 29th of May 2026. So following this very popular post on the ether theory versus Einstein theory, I thought I would share another book from 1923, which was suppressed or not passed around, concerning Louis Pasteur versus Antoine Bechamp. The claims being that Louis Pasteur actually took Antoine Bechamp's work, altered it, and came out with the germ theory, which is actually pseudoscientific. So, I know, I'm probably going to get loads of comments on this. I don't know if this post is going to get taken down or not, but I'm going to try it anyway. If you go onto AI and the internet and research those two people, your AI results will be that Pasteur is absolutely correct and Bechamp was wrong. When you study the original works, you may find the opposite. And there are two camps. There are two camps here. There are a number of people who are definitely supportive of Bechamp's work. He was a contemporary of Pasteur at the time, and his work is fully described in this book. So I'm going to tell you about the book. Here you go. It was written by this lady in 1923. And at the time, she was trying to highlight the fraud and the pharmaceutical industry behind it. So this was already going on over 100 years. And don't forget, this is all around the same time of what was going on in the US also, right? But I feel it's important that individuals have the right to read original research and the pros and the cons and make up their own mind on it. I think that's the best way. So what happens here, what we have here is we actually have this book. So this is a 1923 book. It is completely available online on Internet Archives, but I've also put it on my website. So if you go to my link tree and you go on the scan books section, I've upgraded it to make it a bit easier to find my scanned books. So at the moment, you've just got English language and science. So if you go into the science, the link will take you to the science page where you will find the wireless book that I talked about a week ago about Einstein and ether theory. And then I've also posted this one. So Bechamp or Pasteur, a lost chapter in the history of biology, which describes Bechamp's research and Louis Pasteur's plagiarism and how he altered the theory, and how Bechamp's science, which was the correct science, then became the pseudoscience, whereas Pasteur's science, which was the pseudoscience, then got taken as the science. Right. Now, there's another book here in this. So this is from Amazon, so you can actually take that from Amazon. And the publishers also added a second book at the beginning, which is this one, Pasteur, Plagiarist, Imposter, The Germ Theory Exploded by R.B. Pearson. And this is a 1942 book. Now, the reason for those books, I'm just going to read it from the publishers, and that way you will see. This volume contains new editions of two books which have been available only sporadically in the decades since their publication. R. Pearson's Pasteur, Plagiarist, Imposter was originally published in 1942 and is a succinct introduction to both Louis Pasteur and Antoine Bechamp and the reasons behind the troubled relationship that they shared for their entire working lives. Whereas Pearson's work is a valuable introduction to an often complex topic, it is Ethel Douglas Hume's expansive and well-documented Bechamp or Pasteur, a lost chapter in the history of biology, which provides the main body of evidence. So it is that second book here, which you can find on my website and all over the internet as a PDF. Okay, so it says here, it covers, so Ethel's book, it covers the main points of contention between Bechamp and Pasteur in depth sufficient to satisfy any degree of scientific or historical scrutiny, and it contains, wherever possible, detailed references to the source material and supporting evidence. Virtually no claim in Miss Hume's book is undocumented. To have access to more material, one would need to be able to read French and go to the original source material. Now, a lot of the references are in there, so the source material is in there. The reader will soon discern that neither Mr. Pearson nor Miss Hume could ever be called fans of Pasteur or his, quote, science. They both declare their intentions openly, that they wish to contribute to the undoing of a massive medical and scientific fraud. The publication of this present edition of their work is undertaken with complete empathy for that intention. The text of both books has been comprehensively re-edited for style more than content, the intention being to make for easier reading than the style of language used in the first half of the 20th century would otherwise allow. Now, this is why I prefer original books. And whilst this is okay, this is good, because I've checked Ethel's book and I've checked it against the scan of the original book, which I've got on my website. You're safe when you get the original publication, because later in time, Lord knows what happens when things are republished. That's the problem, or rescanned in the future, or republished newly, 100 years later. There's always that risk that, perhaps there's a slight error in the editing, or something's been removed unintentionally or intentionally. So that's why I go for the original books, and that's why I have all that behind. But anyway, and here's another thing that I'm going to read. So this is right out of this one, Pasteur, Plagiaries, Impostor. So this is a 1942 book, the introduction to Ethel Hume's work. And the reason I'm reading that for you, obviously, is to see if you're interested. You can just go and read the book. But it's very interesting here. It says the writer has made an effort in his prior books and pamphlets to show that the germ theory is false, and that illness is practically always due to errors of diet or manner of living, the germs being present solely as scavengers of dead and waste tissues and foods, and not as the cause of the disease. However, the erroneous belief that germs cause disease and must be controlled or eliminated before it can be cured is so widespread as to close the minds of many people to any other ideas on this subject. Hence, it seems appropriate to go over the subject in order to show the truth regarding the falsity of Pasteur's ideas and claims to fame, and the fraudulent basis on which the germ theory rests, as was so well shown by Miss Hume in Bechamp or Pasteur. So this book that you've got available here. And to add other facts and statistics that support the idea that the germ theory is false, in the hopes that it may receive wider circulation and more general attention, and possibly lead to a complete overhauling of the question of the treatment of disease, especially regarding serology, which is a study of blood serums. So I thought this is really interesting, and people will argue and put all their opinions, and that's totally okay. But the best thing, I think, is to read the original works of that time. And I would say it is quite technical, because I've started reading this and I'm not an expert in biology. Biology is not my forte, let's just say. So this is where you have dictionaries, right? Just get yourself hold of a dictionary. I've got the Oxfords there. You can get the Oxford. These are the more modern ones. Ideally, like in what I have behind me, you want a dictionary of around that era. So this is a 1923 book. Best dictionaries will be dictionary of that time or around that time. This is why I have so many dictionaries, because I can use the dictionaries of that era of the book to then check out the meanings of the words. I mean, that's logical, isn't it? So get yourself a dictionary if you need, and take the time to study and look up any words you don't understand in it. Obviously, if you're, if you're conversant in biology and biology comes to you easily, you'll have no problem reading that, and you may find it interesting. The other interesting thing with it is there is very clear explanation and evidence and sources of all the experiments that Bechamp was doing. So I imagine that if you're skilled in that field, you could easily reproduce many of the experiments, and that would be really, really interesting. Very much like that book on wireless that I discussed last week, where the author actually outlines many of the activities or construction of some of the equipment. So anybody with the time or the resources or knowing where to get the material can actually test a lot of that information.